I want to give you a very serious update on the situation in Ukraine. World War III is coming. The war there now in its fourth month. Goes on and on. Will it end with a settlement or victory on either side? Well, whichever occurs. I believe that the stage for World War III is nearly set. A wider conflict than Russia and Ukraine seems inevitable. The situation is dire. But there is hope in this update I'm giving you about Ukraine, even though I'm warning that World War III could be very near. As most of you know, I have very close ties to the people of Ukraine who are suffering so much. I have ministered there on a yearly basis, going back for more than a dozen years. I have been referred to by Ukrainian church leaders as the apostle of deliverance to the Ukrainian people, and I accept that title humbly, and I thank the Lord for the opportunity. I've ministered in more than 50 cities in Ukraine, including all the places that you hear about on the news. I've been there. I've seen those cities. I know those rivers and those roads. And I've been a visiting professor of spiritual warfare at the largest Bible college and seminary in Eastern Europe. So I say this so that all of you know my roots in Ukraine are deep, but I am increasingly concerned about the direction this present war has taken. When I find the political far left, anti-Christian factions in America supporting Ukraine, the most Christian country in Europe, I get a little bit suspicious. Shakespeare famously said, "Something is rotten in Denmark." Now in its fourth month, as I just said, the war in Ukraine, which started on February 24, it drags on. So is it going to have a settlement or victory on either side? Whichever, I believe the stage is set. There is going to be a wider conflict unless something dramatically happens. It's almost inevitable. Unlike some preachers who claim supernaturally revealed words in the matter, I'm not going to give you that. I'm going to give you hard facts about what's really going on. The truth isn't obvious, but it's got to be seen against the backdrop of the political and economic factors there. First, I want you to seriously consider some facts you are not hearing in the mainstream media. Here is why Ukraine is so important. This great nation is at the crossroads of Europe and Asia and Russia, and it has the following distinctions. Listen carefully. It's number one in Europe in proven recoverable reserves of uranium. It's number one in Europe in arable land. It's number two in Europe in total land area. It's number two in Europe in titanium ore reserves. It's number two in iron ore reserves in the entire world. It's number three in Europe regarding shale gas reserves, and it's number four in Europe in terms of the value of natural resources. Now, do you see why Ukraine is so important? It's a country worth having and controlling, and Russia knows it. The fighting has now become a war of attrition with no end in sight, and the cost is worldwide. A fact that has the potential to draw all of humanity into the fray. Nearly 7 million Ukrainians have left the country. Russia has seized the industrial heartlands and is blocking Ukraine access to the sea. Russia isn't backing down, and neither are the brave Ukrainians. Russia has aligned with the two largest countries in the world, China and India. And after pouring tens of billions of American dollars into Ukraine, our government is only hoping, just hoping, and by admission of the Secretary of State, what they're after is a political solution, lest we offend Russia. Meanwhile, Putin threatens nuclear war, and unless he's deposed, he won't stop no matter what the cost. To give Putin what he wants would mean him asking for more at some point, and what and when that breaking point would be, no one knows. But it would inevitably lead to a world war of some kind and scope. My emphasis here isn't about Bible prophecy. I've discussed that in earlier blogs. how the stage is being set for a Russian coalition to invade Israel. But here are some basic facts you need to know as I see it. Our current administration and government really never intended for Ukraine to win the war, as far as I can see it. They only need to give enough weapons to keep it going and deflect attention from the domestic problems they're having. That's a personal opinion, but I think that's what's happening. And Putin knows that, and he's acting accordingly. He is only too happy to let the president blame him for America's woes. The current conflict is all about oil. Russia has made its way around the embargoes, but now our government wants to buy oil from our enemies like Venezuela, the communists, and Iran. Barely more than a year ago, America was self-sufficient in oil and even exporting oil. Now Washington wants to make deals with Muslim militants in Iran. Our climate change agenda has taken over and forced us into energy dependency. Do you see how this is developing? The energy map of the world has been redrawn. So that pits America against China, India, and Turkey, and Saudi Arabia. They all have ideologies that are opposed to Christianity. The demise of America would delight them. Then the dollar as a default currency would no longer be essential to the world economy. Do you see where this is headed? The embargo on Russia and its oil, it really hasn't worked. Europe still gets about 95% of its natural gas from Russia. And with America and Europe committed to what I think is the insanity of immediately ending fossil fuel investments, Russia and their partners in crime against Ukraine will have a stranglehold on the West. Solar windmills will be a joke in the face of such a cabal of evil. Renewable energy is decades away at best, and that gives plenty of time for Russia's conquering ambitions to intensify. Has anyone noticed that Arabian Oil Company has taken over Apple as the world's most valuable company? Middle East regimes consider it laughable. Zero carbon countries like the U.S. are now begging for Saudi Arabian oil production to be increased. And the taking of Crimea in the south and Donetsk region in the east is exactly how Hitler started, when European nations conceded to Hitler by giving up a small chunk of the land called Sudetenland. This was the historical German name for the northern, southern, and western areas of former Czechoslovakia. They were inhabited primarily by Sudeten Germans. Neville Chamberlain, the Prime Minister of Europe, appeased Hitler, leading to World War II. The European Union and our government seems to be like the Chamberlains of our age. This is a war that could cripple America. And because America sends out more missionaries and does more to spread the gospel, it cripples Christianity. It isn't because there's going to be fighting on our soil, because the economic consequences could be devastating. That's the problem. And Putin could use this as a pretext to launch nuclear warheads into America, complicit with the Chinese. As the stage is being set for World War III, we need to be aware that Daniel chapter 11 prophesies a series of such battles. Some will take place before Armageddon, some after. Even more crucial are references to a king of the north striking Israel. Ezekiel 38 and 39 seems to be clearly identifying this as Russia, at least at the end of the tribulation. And many Bible scholars believe that, in fact, both Russia and Ukrainian people are Rus people, descended from the ancient Scythians. So you can see why he wants to conquer Ukraine. Whether he understands that agenda or not, the devil's got an agenda. So if the Russians/Ukrainians are Rus, or Rosh, as it's referred to in Ezekiel 38, the devil must find a way for Russia to defy America, conquer all or part of Ukraine, and then make his move on a climate change weakened United States. That's happening now, and the stage is being set for an even greater implementation of this demonic agenda. This is especially true if part of the biblical Magog includes what we now know as China. The only bulwark against this is enlightened Christians who truly understand what is at stake politically and spiritually. We can't let Ukraine be another Vietnam by proxy. Our economy can't afford it, and the rush to Armageddon must be slowed. The souls of many who do not know the Lord hang in the balance. The end is near. There's no question about that, but it's not quite yet. We're commanded to occupy. Read again the parable in Luke 19:13, which speaks of this. We're supposed to occupy until he comes. And that means constant exertion to preach the gospel, heal the sick, and cast out demons. So in this late hour that we are now facing in the prophetic timetable of the end of human history, we need to do more than ever. And I thank you for joining with me to get out this message, to do all we can to see people get delivered from the devil and become strong in the Lord for the tough times that may lie ahead. There is hope in Jesus Christ. We should look up. Our redemption draws nigh. But watch carefully what's going on in Ukraine, because this may be the precursor to the end of the ages.
Your financial support and prayers make it possible for us to bring hope for the hurting and freedom to those in spiritual bondage. For the latest information regarding ministry outreaches, go to boblarson.org or call 303-980-1511.